Hello everyone, my name is Kwamia Ross and today my video is called He Is Gone. Now, yesterday I posted a video and it was called My Son Was Arrested. Now, there was an incident that occurred yesterday where my son was at the library. Well, he told me he wanted to go to the library because, now that my car is broken down after my car was destroyed, my son has not been able to participate in his extracurricular activities. He usually just goes to school and he'll go to practice after school, and then sometimes he'll want to go to the library. The library is right there within a 3-minute walk next to the school. And he's been going to the library pretty much on a regular basis or hanging out with a couple friends around the library. And, he's 15 years old. I trusted him to be responsible to go to the library. So he went to the library yesterday, and I received a phone call probably within an hour by a police officer saying there was an incident to come and get my son, and they wanted to talk to me. So I went up to the library, and I was told that my son had threatened, he didn't threaten directly this individual, but he told some other children that he was going to kill this girl at the school, and he showed them a box cutter. So they called the police on him. One of the students had called the police. And so they went ahead and took my son. Right now he's admitted into a psychiatric hospital. This will be like his third time staying within a medical psychiatric facility. And they said that he's not safe. He is a danger to others, that he has to be there. And so I'm making this video because of the burdens that were cast upon my son. And I want to expose everything, how he was destroyed, and expose the conspiracy to sabotage my son that was actually, orchestrated by the Richmond Heights Local School District, along with the Cuyahoga County Division of Children and Family Services, the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court System, and Ohio Guidestone. Now, my son was taken out of his home back in February 14th of 2020. And I posted a lot of videos talking about the Richmond Heights Local School District and how they started off attacking my son. They started off messing with him in the classroom. He was a bright boy. He came to the school. He had no problems. I used to get, praise and adulation about, get a lot of positive rapport and comments about feedback about how much of a gentleman he was, how well his behavior was, and that they didn't have any problems. The thing is, my son is a very observant person. He has a gift on him that he has since he was young. He was ordained to be a prophet from an early age. And as prophets, you see things. You see evil and you expose things. And that was already inside of him, just like it was in me. So there's a spirit out there to get the prophets. Now, before we finish on, this is no way to condone or to justify what my son's done. It is just to give some clarification on what happened and to expose the evil agenda that is not only happening towards my son and my family, but happening to a lot of other people. Now, my son had originally came home and, well, let's back up. I had gone to celebrate my son's birthday at the classroom, and I saw that they were using, cups that you just wash, and I reported that. And, I guess the teacher had gotten in trouble after that. Now, my son came home one day after going to the restroom in the preschool. He's in the preschool there, and told me that another student had tried to touch his private area. And ever since I contacted the teacher regarding that, he had been having problems after another. His behavior went from good to all of a sudden he was getting all these negative reports. He was being placed in timeout every day. My daughter would actually come home because she went to school with him at the time. They were like a grade apart. And she would tell me she saw him sitting in the classroom crying and they were mistreating him. So as a result, what they have done is they separated the bond between my children. so my daughter couldn't tell me anything. My children started bickering back and forth. The relationship was ruined. They had always been very close. I didn't know what was wrong. It took many years for the Holy Spirit to show me what has been done. But basically, I ended up filing a due process hearing because of a lot of the things that were going on that I didn't agree with. I filed a due process hearing and a complaint against the school. And the Lord revealed to me they had been retaliating against my son ever since that complaint was filed against them. My son would go to school. He was a very well outspoken child, had a great personality where he could easily make friends. He loved being around people. He was very social. He had gone from having friends to being bullied and teased. It was always the same thing. It was people who were kids who were friends with him and loved him and liked to play with him and were getting along well with him, all of a sudden just turned around and would start bullying him and teasing him and ganging up on him. I would go up to the school and nothing was being done about it. I said, well, did you talk to the teachers? He said he tells the teachers no one did anything. And it was just the same thing over and over. My son had gone from an extroverted, outgoing child to all of a sudden he became very withdrawn. He became very quiet. He was more like a depressed state. He would start making comments and references about wanting to hurt himself. Sometimes he would threaten to want to hurt others. And he would often complain about headaches. I took him out of the school. We went to different other schools. The same thing would happen over and over again, be the same issue. He would start out with good behavior. All of a sudden, his behavior would change. And I go into detail in a lot of these other videos that I made. If you would look at my videos where I exposed the Richmond Heights Local School District along with the Mayfield Heights Local School District, I go into detail about what was happening. And the Holy Spirit was letting me know that they were attacking my son's frontal lobe. When he would have those headaches, they were doing sorcery and psychic attacks on his brain. They would cause him to be in a depressed state. They were manipulating and controlling the minds of the other children and making them attack him and tease him and mistreat him to the point where they had already targeted my son. They target certain children. The Lord was letting me know they target certain children who come from either a low income environment or they get public housing, they're on welfare because the government targets them and feels that they're their property. When I had my children, I was young and I was on welfare. So welfare paid for the birth of my children. And so ever since then, they think that they own him. The devil feels he has rights. Not only that, my father opened the door to a lot of things because of evil covenants that were made over his life, and along with his father all committing sorcery. And so the devil felt he had rights to my child. I prayed for my children on a daily basis. But, the suffering and everything continued. My child was suffering every single day. I ended up taking him out of school. My daughter ended up suffering. She would get sick constantly. They made kids start bullying and teasing her when she used to get along well with kids, and she had gotten beaten down back in, we were at Susquehanna Township School District in Harrisburg. My daughter had gotten beaten so badly she had a concussion as a result of it. And I tried to file a lawsuit against the school and no one would take the lawsuit. No one would ever help us, and this is how they get away with this stuff. They're all in it together. Now, back to my son. We ended up moving to Harrisburg, like I said, but we ended up leaving and coming back to Ohio. I had lost my home down there. And I put my children back in school. The bullying started all over again. My daughter was having seizures, so I took them out of the school and started homeschooling them. The Richmond Heights Local School District called Child Services on us, and they put my kids in foster care because they would not release the academic records. During that time, I had realized then that it was a woman by the name of Lakeisha Davies who was the director of special education. She told me that my son hadn't been cooperating in school. She hadn't told me that he didn't want to do the work. And I said, well, he shuts down. He gets frustrated when he doesn't understand it. And she had never let me know any of this stuff. No one had called me. They just thought, oh, my son had behavioral problems. But it was actually him suffering from his disability where he could not understand the work. So long story short, after my son did 18 months in Ohio Guidestone, a rehabilitation or a residential facility where he was subjected to a lot of things, a lot of abuse and other mistreatment, he was able to come back home with me and was released into my custody. I re-enrolled him back into the Richmond Heights Local School District because we really had nowhere else to go. There were no really other options. I had wanted to send him to a charter school. We didn't have the transportation to go back and forth. I, at the time, could not even pay my car note. I was rarely working and able to pick up work because they had been attacking me repeatedly on jobs. We were going through all the spiritual attacks. So he ended up being re-enrolled back into the Richmond Heights Local School District, but they did not want him at the school physically in the building. They made him go to a virtual school because other than that, he would have an alternative method they were offering him. It's more like a lockdown school where it's for children who have bad behavior. And I didn't want that stigma on my son because he did not have bad behavior. He was just troubled emotionally. And because of all the things they had done to him to destroy him, they had destroyed his cognitive abilities. They have destroyed his frontal lobe where he could not make rational decisions. And on top of that, he was, had a disability where he was delayed in a lot of intellectual aspects. So I did not want my son put in a lockdown school where he had to be treated like he was a criminal and like he had some type of behavioral problem where he could not get along well with the rest of society. And this was never supposed to be for my son. He was a very bright boy. He was very intelligent. He was taking things apart at age of 3. He would take apart radios and work computers. He knew how to do all that stuff. He had an intelligent mind, and I felt that he could have done something like engineering or a lot of things. And this is what they do. They attack certain children, especially servants or righteous children, children who come from Christian families, prophets, people who have an anointing on them. And the devil's children are out there destroying them, doing the work of Satan to destroy these kids so they cannot have their purpose in God. My son was targeted by these people. Now, they say we cannot go to the physical building. They sent him to a virtual school online where he was failing. He could not understand anything after his brain had been destroyed so badly. It had been destroyed at every school he'd gone to, plus at Ohio Guidestone. They finished it off there by attacking his brain. He would have headaches there, and he had gotten to the point where he could not do basic even calculations and addition or subtraction or anything like that. He was reading well below his level that he was supposed to be for his age and grade type, and he just could not understand anything. So this was more of a virtual class where it was self-paced. He did not have a teacher teaching him. He just had assignments that would come up, and the teacher would grade the work after it was done. I had to do a lot of helping him with it at the same time, trying to juggle going to work, and my son was falling behind. The curriculum was not for him. I talked to the district over and over, asked them to change the curriculum, and they would not. I ended up filing another complaint. This time they were found in violation, and they had to rewrite his IEP, which is something Mrs. Davies had refused to do from the very beginning. When I took my son back to school in September, she had refused to write him a new IEP. She wanted to go by the old IEP, which was wrong. The IEP was not right. So we're going to fast forward. My son did not even get the opportunity to get reevaluated to around March of this year. And he was allowed back into the school close to, I'd say, about the end of March or close to April. And he'd been going to school okay. I'd been receiving feedback that he was doing well. He'd only been in school for probably less than a month. And then, the Holy Spirit had already told me that they were going to sabotage and set things up because these are people who are filled with pride. They didn't like the fact that I filed a complaint against them, that they were found in violation, and they want to save face and make it seem like they were right all along, that my son did not belong at this school. So not only did the Richmond Heights Local School District conspire to destroy my son and sabotage him, but Children and Family Services, along with the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court Systems, had decided to do this as well. Because again, these people wanted to cover up for themselves for wrongfully taking my children out of the home. Not only that, they felt that these kids are their property. They didn't want to release my son, but I made a bunch of videos exposing them and all their shady tactics. So they ended up releasing my son, but they kept my daughter permanently. I'm going to back up before I talk more about the school to say where this further got more difficult. When my son was in Ohio Guidestone, the caseworker at the time, my caseworker Becky Sawyers, had arranged for him to have FaceTime visits with his father, his biological father, Pierre Davis. I was very against this and adamant that I not want my children to have contact with him. He had been out of their lives for over 10 years because he had molested them when they were small children, even though they say there is no legal documents supporting this. I had taken my children back and forth to therapies ever since they were small. There have been reports of abuse. I had reported to the doctor. I reported to the therapist. Even the therapist that we had my daughter act out some dolls, and she said that she could tell there was some abuse that had been going on, and they all knew that this had happened. But despite, these allegations, the caseworker arranged for this to happen, arranged my son to have these FaceTime visits with his father. He had seen him for the first time in over 10 years. And I noticed a change in my son. His whole behavior started changing. The Lord revealed to me that what they had done did some type of sorcery to allow this man to attach himself to my son's soul, to sabotage him. Now, if you want to know about Pierre Davis, he has a criminal record. He has a very low IQ. When he acts irrationally. He did a lot of things where he did not use common sense. He was the type of person that was very timid and soft, almost emasculated. He didn't want to do anything. He was very lazy and apathetic. He would not go to school. He would not get a job. He would not do anything. And he rarely even bathed himself or put on a change of clothes. You could tell that there were mental problems with him and his family. I did not know what the mental disorder was or what mental illness that he had. I eventually cut things off with him because of the fact that he had molested my children, because he never contributed anything the entire time I was with him. I took care of him like he was another child. He wouldn't do anything for his children. He watched them and babysat for them. I would come home. He'd be sitting on the couch either watching TV or half asleep, and my children would be running around with no clothes on, their hair is uncombed, and hadn't eaten anything. And so when this man's soul was put into my son started looking exactly like him. He started sounding like him, started talking like him, started thinking like him, and even behaving like him. He started doing all irrational things. He would start acting ghetto and very ignorant. My son had never acted like that before. My son actually had a very proper he talked very proper. He was raised in suburbs and went to good schools. I exposed him to plenty of things. We did things as a child. He would go to museums. He would go to the zoo. I would taught him things. He was always out doing things. Pierre did not live that type of life. So he has been in my son for months now. This has been going on for months. I had posted a video exposing how he was inside my son, and the agenda was for him to sabotage my son and cause him to get in some type of trouble because they wanted to take him out of the home. Now, I'm going to fast forward back here to the school. Now, this is the same scenario that happened when they first took my son out of the home the first time. He was caught with a knife in the playground. My son said he wanted a knife for protection. He didn't know why. When the police came up, he was just swinging a knife in the air. Like I said, they can control these children's brains. They attack them to the point where they cannot think and make sound decisions. And they're also using sorcery to attack these children's brains to cause them to do these things so they can get in trouble. And a lot of it has to stem due to, they want to make money off of these children. They want to lock them up, put them in group homes, and have them take these therapies and all these type of services which they get money off of. I talk about that again in the Mayfield Heights video that I made about exposing the Mayfield Heights schools, how they're all getting something off of it, the group homes, the medical facilities, the psychiatrists, caseworkers, all these people. It's a funded thing, and they get money by taking our children. Now, this is the same scenario. They did not want my child back at the school. My child was doing well. He had just started taking track. He was on the track team. He had gotten his uniform, and he was about to have his first track meet today. He was supposed to have the first track meet Monday, but it ended up raining, so he canceled it. So he was looking forward to that. And so the thing is, he got into this situation with this young lady. And so my son did not tell me no one was bothering him. I didn't know anything. All I knew was he said there was a young girl who goes to school with him at the playground, who he caught behind the building performing fellatio on another kid, a boy her age. So I guess the girl was embarrassed about this, and she was upset that my son had saw this. So she ended up going around the school making rumors about him, saying he's a pedophile, he molests young boys, he sexually abuses boys, and she had been doing this. He said this has been going on for a while. He said he had gone to the teachers and told them about this, and no one did anything. One of the teachers, African-American woman, had called the student down to her classroom in front of everyone and asked the girl about it, and she said she was just joking. I don't know if there was any type of consequences towards her for that type of behavior, for, besmirching my son's character and all these things. But it continued on. This girl continued to do this, and my son, by them messing up his brain, and every place he's gone to, every facility, they've destroyed his cognitive development and everything. And he's been working on trying to respond well, but sometimes he can be emotionally unstable. So he had said he threatened he was going to harm this girl and do something to her with his box cutter. So that's the story here. All of this was orchestrated before my son even went back to school on his first day. The Lord had already let me know that Lakeisha Davies, who was orchestrating all of this, was going to set him up and try to sabotage him to get him in some type of trouble, because they did not want him at the school, and she wanted to save her face. She was filled with pride. So I'm exposing all of these people. My son is gone now. He has gone through literal hell ever since I've come to do God's work. They have destroyed my son in many ways, and I have made a huge list of how they have destroyed this servant, this prophet of God. And I'm going to go ahead and read off this list now, because we shouldn't have to carry the burdens of other people. The thing is, I did God's work, and I was not supposed to be rewarded evil for good. My children are not supposed to be sitting here all messed up, with my son sitting here having to go through psychiatric help and therapy and all these things that they caused because they damaged him. I should not have my daughter in foster care being subjected to sexual abuse. I should not be walking around looking like this, my facial features all distorted and messed up, my skin ruined, fat all over my body, looking like some welfare mother who does not take care of her kids, who don't care about anything, who's lazy and has a poor mental state. The thing is, he delivered me from everything, but you sat here and put me and my children back in other people's bondages and let these people cover up what they have done, and we're taking the downfall. I am tired of my children taking the downfall. They have destroyed my son and my children. They have taken literally everything from him since he was a very small child. He has not got a chance to live his life. He has been stripped of every opportunity. And just today, by ruining this for him, his track debut, that's something that hurts. That's something you cannot repay. So I'm going to be exposing all of this. Now, a lot of this has happened because of a man by the name of James Penny III, who I've actually made numerous videos about, who has come into my life. He was a Satanist who had raped and did things to me, had violated me. He had used sorcery to attack me and my family. I worked for him back in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He would bewitch me, try to make me fall in love with me. He would sexually assault me and do all kinds of things to me. He molested my daughter. He caused her to have a seizure. He tried to nearly have my son attempt to commit suicide. He's done all these things to cover up what he has done, and because he does not want my children around. So the thing is, God has allowed all these people to come up against one prophet and an anointed family. And I'm at this point where I want justice. I don't care if anyone believes me or not. God knows the truth. God knows what happened. And I want justice for every single thing, because I answered the call to help his people. I did not answer the call so that I can go into bondage and be in the same bondage his people are in, or carry the burdens. I answered the call so he could free his people and help them, not put me in a bondage. Me and my children were never supposed to be in anyone's bondage and suffering for anyone. So I actually made a long list of how they have destroyed my son, Desmond Ross. This has been going on since he was probably 3 years old or even younger. They've attacked him in school and caused him to have headaches, destroying his brain. They pitted children up against him and made children bully and tease him by manipulating those children, controlling their brains. He would always go from having friends to all of a sudden the kid wouldn't like him for no reason, would have everyone bullying him. Then when I would get that resolved with one child, they would have another child, they would move on to another child and have that child bullying him. They have switched and changed his destinies and swapped it with other people. He had went to a school, Thomas Holtzman, he was at Chambers Hill Elementary School back in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where an aide had sat there and touched his head and another boy's head, and that boy was a troubled boy whose mother was never around. And the Lord told me many years later, just now recently told me, that they had swapped his destiny and tried to have him carry the burden of this other boy. They have controlled his emotions, behavior to cause him to act irrationally and erratically and to engage in self-destructive behavior. Evidence of that is when I posted in the video about the Mayfield Heights local school district, where he was doing well and they wanted me to take these services and I declined them. Then all of a sudden his behavior completely changed overnight, and he had ended up punching a girl and he didn't even understand why he did it. They made him steal a knife and wave it around the park, and they just conveniently came at the park at the time he was spinning this knife in the air and arrested him. They caused him to drink alcohol and nearly die. They set all these things that they do, and they go back and say, oh, well, your son did these things, but they were controlling them to do it so they can have a reason to get him, and they're doing this with a lot of children. They've actually sent him to foster care and caused him to be subjected to more abuse and destruction of his cognitive abilities. He was actually shot at the foster care home. He had gone through abuse at the group homes. Every time I would work and do stuff with my kids, I had him in summer camp. I had him in a lot of activities. He was going to the recreation center to do things. He was taking up boxing. Each time I was doing something with my son, they would attack my car. They would cause it to break down. They would send their sorcerers around to do things to the car where it couldn't function. And I didn't have the money to repair it because they were attacking me on the job, attacking my finances. They would do everything so my son would be in a bondage so he couldn't have anything to do. They were basically oppressing him. So he could not participate in any activities such as camp or sports while their children are out living a good life and enjoying things. He could not go to school with his classmates and his peers. He's been shamed in front of everyone. They kept him in a bondage and made sure I had no money or transportation to do anything with them. They had him spend time in a mental hospital 2 times and then a residential facility for 18 months. They worked with his biological father, Peter Davis, and had him attached to his soul, so his biological father could start setting up and sabotaging him and destroying him. He literally walks around and controls my son's behavior and emotions and personality and every single thing. All of it is up Pierre. It's not my son. I look at my son and it's not even him I see. It's Pierre. It's not even him I'm talking to. It's Pierre. They have set up things to disrupt his counseling services so they can have a reason to say that, oh, I'm not getting him counseling, and they could keep him longer in the court system. For example, my son was going to Project Lift, and he was having services there. When I first enrolled him in Project Lift, they said, oh, it's okay. You can have virtual services or you can come to the building. You can do either or. We have that flexibility for our clients. So my son was having virtual services there, and then I was taking him to the building. But we had actually lost, the worker by the name of Latoya stopped wanting to deal with my son. She was another sorcerer who basically did not want judgment on her facility, and she was working with Children and Family Services. They're all in it together, working with them. So she started saying, well, your son can't have virtual services because he doesn't engage well when he's on virtual, so we want him to come to the building. Well, my car had gotten torn up. Their brakes had completely went out. I posted a video about that, which was no fault of my own. They were attacking me again, setting it all up. And so I explained this to her. I said, there's no way for me to virtually come here. And so they're saying, oh, we can't do it. He has to be virtual. And not on top of that, they were saying, oh, we didn't have the right insurance, just making up every excuse we couldn't do it. So I had to end up leaving them and finding another therapist. And we were in transition to find a therapist. So they all worked together. Every time we had a therapist, something would go wrong, or it would be an issue that they would basically cause so they can say that, oh, he's not getting his therapy, and well, we have to keep your son, or we have to keep him under protective supervision longer, or they have a reason to take him out of the home. They've been doing this and playing this game. Not only that, they has destroyed, like I said, they destroyed his opportunity to run track. My son had never been allowed to participate in school sports. He did play sports through, other organizations outside of school, but he looked forward to playing sports on a school team with his peers. And he had finally been able to do that. He was finally given that opportunity, even though they really didn't want it. They were attacking me full force the entire time. It took 2 weeks for the coach to even contact me when I sought him out to ask him my son be on the track team. It took 2 weeks to even get the forms and even get the ball rolling in that area. Then once he was able to do that, we had to get his physical and everything, and a lot of hindrances and obstacles were in the way, but we ended up getting over that. We overcame all of that. And so my son was going to practice faithfully. He had practiced for 2 weeks. He had gotten his uniform, came home excited, showing me his uniform. He's ready to run track, and they were supposed to have their first track meet and ended up getting canceled because of the rain. And so then this happened the next day, right before he's supposed to have his track meet, his very first track meet. So they took that opportunity from him. The boys will be running today. My son is sitting here in a psychiatric hospital. So that's another thing, and he has to bear that shame. He has to bear that shame because of what they've done out of their own selfish, wicked hearts to attack my son. Not only that, they have separated him from his sister and destroyed their bond. Their bond is still not together to this day. They might talk, but it was nothing like what it used to be. They barely even speak to each other. It's almost like they're strangers. And that was done by that school, because they didn't like the fact that my daughter was reporting things that were happening with her brother, and that she stuck up for him, and she had a personality where she was very protective over him. And that had been since she was very small, because she had saw things. She even told me out of her own mouth that she had witnessed her own biological father doing things to my son. That's why she is very protective over him and very close to him, and they destroyed that. Also transferring homosexual spirits onto him. They have Pierre inside of him. He's transferring his spirits onto him. My son used to be able to be really athletic and very tough, and sometimes he acts so emasculated, doesn't even want to pick up the garbage or take the trash out, barely acts like he can catch a ball, and all the things I saw in his father, Pierre Davis, before I left him. They caused him to have mental emotional problems. There was nothing wrong with my son. Now he has to have this stigma for the rest of his life, going in and out of group homes and being in and out of psychiatric hospitals, having group and individual therapy, being on medication because of what they've done to him. Now I look at here, because there's a scripture in the Bible where it says, if anyone offends one of these little ones who belongs unto me, it be best if a millstone be cast about their necks and they be tossed into the sea. I look at that scripture meaning, if you destroy God's children that belong to him, your fate should be very worse than that, far off worse than that. And I look at all these people who have come up against my son, who was an anointed prophet, and have destroyed his life, have taken everything from him that he cannot get back. They have done basically everything they could to shame him, to ruin him and destroy him, to take opportunities from him. Everything he got, they attacked and destroyed it. Even a little girlfriend. He had a girlfriend for the first time and posted a picture of him and her on a date. They had gone to some go-kart place. He had posted a picture on the internet about his little date and told him not to do it. A day later, they had an argument and broke up. And they have done everything to destroy my son. Whenever he's going for sports, whenever he has a friend, they will ruin it. These spirits have come out and these people have done these things, the same people. And I want vengeance against every adversary. See, I came and answered the call to do God's work. I didn't answer the call for you to destroy my children. I didn't answer the call so I could sit here like this, fat and walking around ashamed, looking like some welfare mammy, the stereotype that they have of a black poor woman who sits on welfare and sits on her behind all day, won't work or do anything, just eats all the time and rarely watches her children. Her children are in foster care or in and out of jail, getting in trouble. And that's the burden he put on me. He put this reproach of other people onto me. He caused me to do his work by freeing his people, but you put a reproach on me that I was not supposed to carry or bear. You said, "Come unto me, all ye are who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." You didn't say I, me, Quamia Ross will give them rest. You said you will give them rest. You said your yoke is light and not heavy. The thing is, your yoke is supposed to be easy and not hard, and your burdens are supposed to be light and not heavy. I've been given heavy burdens to carry that do not even belong to me. My children have been carrying heavy burdens since they were small children and could not live their lives. And now my son is sitting here ruined and destroyed. And I don't even know if he'll be allowed to go back to the school. But if he does, he has to walk there with shame. He has to walk there with shame. And yes, the teachers were all involved. And this is why they didn't do anything when the girl was picking on him. And this is why you see so many school shootings. And I'm not condoning anything. But this is why the enemy is after certain children. And you see kids getting bullied and messed over. And then they come to the school and shoot it up because the enemy is out to destroy their lives. And the teachers and everyone else is involved. They're doing the work of Satan to destroy these children. They're destroying everyone. And I spoken out, made books and everything, but no one wants to listen. Everyone's so ignorant that they care more about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. That gets more attention than children who are suffering in foster care and being abused. That gets more attention than this demonic spiritual battle that we're in. But I'm tired now. I told God I refuse to carry anyone else's burdens. If they can't work for themselves, if they can't help themselves and do what needs to be done, and they won't, pay attention and learn on their own how to help and fight for their children, I shouldn't have to keep carrying their burdens. My children shouldn't have to be sitting in foster care for theirs. My children shouldn't have to be sitting in a psychiatric facility for their children. My children shouldn't have to be getting arrested and bearing shame because of their children. They made their decisions, so it's a priority to them. You care more about social media and celebrities and all this nonsense that's irrelevant. I told God I don't want to do it anymore because I'm tired of me and my children being torn apart and destroyed. There are many people out here with ministries, but they're not carrying people's burdens. They help the people, they pray for them, but they don't have the people living inside their souls. They don't have the people raping them and abusing them. They don't have the people destroying their children and taking their brains and setting them up to go to prison and putting them in foster care systems. So that shouldn't be happening to me. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.